Now, continues. Tony Vance will present economic aspects in television distribution. Tony Vance is an assistant professor at the Department of Communication Science at Ghent University, Belgium, where he teaches in media economics and media policy. He has published widely on the media business in international peer-reviewed journals and edited volumes. He is the lead author of the Political Economy of Television Sports Rights and Platform Power and Policy in Transforming Television Markets. Tom, disposed, have the floor.
Okay, I'm going to talk about platforms, probably one of the buzzwords in media, in literature and all that. Platforms in television streaming, but also related technology and telecoms, because all these words are coming together, as we've heard already today. My emphasis is on economic power. So what does it make for a platform to be successful, to be able to compete in this world of platforms? And well, we'll dive into the mechanisms of power and control. We're living in a planet of platforms. There are probably way too many platforms. There's a proliferation of platforms today, and what we see is all these platforms, all these online or all these video services, they are involved in a fierce battle to become the leading platform. So the question is, what does it take for a service to be fit, to be prepared to sustain in this planet of platforms? Because there are many services that want to be represented as a platform, and by a platform we mean that these services they want to become intermediaries, selling access in the form of services. And in the past, there was actually more a privilege to pay television operators who had a monopoly in terms of distribution. They were the only one who could deliver services. But in an internet era, of course, many new intermediaries came on the market. And actually, everybody can be a service. Everybody can be a platform these days. If you look at the television value chain, we see television content providers like Disney, for example, going directly to consumers. They want to be a platform. We have channels like BBC develop their own iPlayer. That is a platform. We have pay television operators, BT Sky, they have a platform. They function as a platform. But also the technology players, Amazon, Facebook, which is a social media company then, and Google, Apple, they are trying to be a platform, and they are, in fact. So everybody wants to be a platform, everybody wants to take control of our television experience, let's say, and they aim to be our first point of access to television content. That is actually the strategic point at stake. One obvious indication is, of course, an international verticalization of the industry, where one company takes control of different steps of the value chain. I refer to AT&T, Time Warner, but there are many examples also in Europe and also in the UK, for example. So a platformization of the television industry, that is what we are seeing. Many platform wannabes. So they want to be a platform, but therefore they are not, and are trying to compete for leadership in the industry. As well, I didn't say it actually. I'm not an engineer. I'm from media studies, so I'm not looking at the technical aspect of a platform. Although you can address platforms in terms of technical infrastructure. So you form a base, and based on that, you can add services. In the literature, it's often compared with Lego bricks, so you build all these things upon each other. I look at platforms from an intermediate position, from an economic position, so a platform is an intermediary in the market, which is actually has always been a dominant business model in IT, in online. It's also coming to video and television, because television and video is also going online as well. And this brings with it structural changes in the market structure, but also in the business logic of an industry, where we also begin to speak of lock-in effects, network effects, things you might know from the industry. But remember, there are numerous players, but only a few will be sustainable, or only a few will be grown into a super platform. When we look at the value chain, there are several upgrading strategies. We're looking at the inside a chain, so intra-chain, and what we see over there is that we have production companies, you have aggregators like television channels. They want to be OTT providers themselves, so they develop into OTT services, with of course the aim to bypass or to disrupt even the traditional pay television operators, because they want to own their own services. But in doing that, they're still dependent on network capacity, of course, of the traditional telecom and cable operators. So some people think that, well, we have Netflix, we have BBC iPlayer, let's forget about BT and all the other network operators in the world. No, I think there's still power for these operators. They still need it. If some people are assured in the room, BT is still needed also in the future, because that network capacity is important. So that is inside the chain, intra-chain. Much more important and much more radical actually is also that we see an increasing degree of diagonal integration. That some technology platforms actually, they are moving into different markets, and they are expanding into adjacent markets, leveraging their assets from the one market and the strengths of the market, bringing that into the new market. To break into that new market. Often, but not always, with the aim to improve their competitive position in the old market. For example, I don't know how many people have Prime membership to Amazon. I don't know if that is already rolled out in the UK, I guess. In US, many people have it. Amazon is, in my opinion, not in television or in video because they love television and video. They're just in the business because it improves their position in e-commerce and at Prime membership. Right? So they bring in all the customers, all their money made with their own service, with e-commerce, bring that to television. And television doesn't even have to be a sustainable model in itself, because they can use that for making money in their other markets. That's also what BT does, what Sky, well actually BT did, because they may be in this sector for content, but also of course to sustain their fixed line business. So we're looking for a structural power in the industry, unravel the underlying structures of control in the global industry, because this has really become a global industry with often US-based firms in the lead. Actually, we talk about Amazon, we're talking about Netflix. So this is also a geopolitical issue, and we're looking for control of critical structures and also infrastructures creates economic power. After talking about many executives in the industry, we identified actually 4 sources of structural power. So allow me to present these 4 sources of structural power with you. First of all, and I'll discuss them more in depth afterwards. Of course, content, that's obvious. You need good content to be successful as a television platform, obviously. Also, a cable, but actually we're talking about infrastructure. You'll see in a minute why I use the word cable and not infrastructure. So cable is also the infrastructure is important. Control of the customer, control of the consumer is important. And of course you need capital or access to credit markets. So actually I was looking for 4 words beginning with a C, and infrastructure could have been, but cable looked much nicer. It also comes because I'm from Belgium and we are a cable country. So I'm a bit biased. And these sources of structural power, they are interrelated. If you change one, actually, it affects the other. And well, 4 C's was nice, but it was more nice to come up with a fifth, of course. So we found that in context. And we're talking about policy, regulation, technology, which may affect, of course, how power is conceived and executed in the industry. For example, net neutrality, for example, really impacts the relationship between a distribution company and a service provider. So in the US, they're getting rid of that. In Europe, it's still standing. So that's a different policy context. So let's have a look at each of the 4 control parameters. Actually, well, of course, content is a critical part of the value proposition. Exclusive and premium content is important to be different from, so as to be different from other services. What Murdoch did with sports here he started here in the UK, did Netflix with series. So they set actually a new industry standard. Live television is also still important streaming wise online. And SVOD, so the subscription VOD, is actually an online counterpart of the traditional pay television service. Of course, popular content may come with a price. You also may ask BT and Sky what they pay for the football rights. Excessive demand also creates excessive prices, let's say. But some of these companies are not necessarily in content for the content itself, but sometimes as a retention strategy. Facebook, for example, I don't believe they even care about content. They don't care about video. They're just rolling out their video service because they want to sustain their advertising business. So television is just a means to keep us longer on that platform and generate advertising income. Secondly, control of infrastructure, of course, that remains a key bottleneck, and that will ever be, I think. It's a gateway of the digital economy. All the services in the future will run over that gateway, not only media, but also banking, health, and our cars, whatever. And these, the online services, they need, of course, the access network to reach consumers. So the last mile is very strategically important, and it's very hard to duplicate that. It's very expensive as well. And Netflix and Amazon, they may be building their own CDNs, but they are not controlling that last mile. So that's very, very important. And of course, connectivity allows companies to bundle services, to upsell, to cross-sell. I think we already heard that in the morning as well. So that's for the infrastructure. The customer, the viewer, actually, all these platforms, they are trying to pursue a customer relationship. So actually a paying, preferred customer relationship, a paid relationship with the customer. And they are more or less competing for our attention. When I come home every evening, normally, I sit on my sofa, and then the question is, what am I going to do? Am I going to Netflix? Am I going to YouTube? Am I going to just switch on my set-top box? Whatever. Am I reading a book? Could also sometimes be more useful than watching television. And that is actually the first point of access becomes crucial. What is the first service people go to? And that is the relationship you can build with the customers. Strategically, of course, the closer you get with the customer, the higher the margin. So also financially, that's important. But probably even more important, you can collect data about consumption patterns, which you can use for personalized advertising, for recommended content creation. But it's not only important to collect the data, you also need to analyze the data and use the data, implement the data to improve the customer and the viewing experience. For example, in interfaces which are intuitive, user-friendly, algorithms. So it's also a technical aspect, of course, related to these data. If you have many customers in one market, you can use them to break into other markets. That's what BT did, for example. They had a lot of customers in the fixed line, and they could use them to sell actually their pay television product. So it's also can be used as a lock-in strategy. Therefore, also in telecom and cable, they use bundling, the triple play and the quadruple play. That's because people then don't get away or move to a competitor that easily. And of course, capital, money makes the world go round, they often say. Capital outperforms creativity. If you look at financial statements, capital-intense sectors perform much better than content or even broadcasters. If you're a US-based company, you have a wider scale, so you're in most cases financially stronger. But I really believe that the deepest pockets will stand the platform invasion. I think the platform war will also be a balance war. What can we learn from this presentation? Well, actually, nothing. Because it's by no way a prediction of which platforms will win. I've not said that BT will win, or Netflix will win, or BBC will win, or Disney will win. We just identified some critical control points which we think that will be useful in this platform war. Of course, the more points you can control or have access to, the better your chances are in this platform war. There will be tension between global and local in terms of players, in terms of what content needs to be offered, in terms of regulation as well. So these are questions that remain. But I would like to end with the last 5 lines. Actually, you sometimes hear, well, television is dead. No, I don't think that I don't think so. I'm convinced of that. It's just simply entering a new era of competition, also technically speaking. I think television as a content form is popular and probably more consumed than ever, because a lot of the things we watch on Netflix and YouTube also comes from television. Also with the numerous devices, total viewing time combined over all these devices is going up, so it's still popular. TV as experience is enhanced, or will be enhanced more. We've seen in the previous presentations 4K, VR, or whatever. So that experience we can deliver much more to consumers, I think. But also with sports, for example, the shared community remains. So therefore, I think the live experience will also be important in the coming years. TV as a business model, that's tricky, because of course advertising is trickling away to online platforms. But there is a new life for pay television online, operated by traditional pay television or operated by the new ones. But I think what will change the most is television as a distribution channel. With internet distributed television, of course, that's obvious, but that's only technology. And technology shapes a bit, but it's not the most important factor in this entire battle, I would think. I would like to make some of the use of the occasion actually for some shameless self-promotion. If you're interested in what I was telling, well, I've written a book together with a colleague from Brussels University on this. It's called Platform Power and Policy in Transforming Television Markets. I have some discount flyers with me, but I've got some 4 or 5, so if you're all interested in the book, I cannot give it all to you, but if you send me an email, you will get it. I hope you like my presentation. Yeah, that was it. You can hear my contact details.